wash my soul in the ocean, in the tears of God, I let it go.
Hello my astrology friends and family, these are your 2023 video horoscopes that I create for you every year. I'm so excited to be making them again. This is work of love for me. I put everything in it for 2-3 months while I work on them. And this is the intro to tell you how to work with this information that I'm giving to you so you can make the best of this. Because I don't want to just talk about generic signs. If you're Aries, I'm going to give you degrees so you can see specifically if a planet or transit will affect you. So the first thing you have to do is go to some birth chart calculator. You can use mine at astrolada.com, or you can use any other like AstroSeek. Enter your birth detail, and it's best if you know your time of birth, the minute and the hour. Then once the chart is generated, look below in the description of the chart, find out ascendant, sun and moon. Ascendant, sun and moon symbols or signs, and write the sign and the degree of the ascendant, sun or moon. If you don't know your time of birth, use just your sun sign, because sometimes the moon sign also changes within those 24 hours. So those of you without a birth time who will be working only with your sun sign, you can get a lot of information about yourself. But do write not just the sign of your sun, moon, and ascendant, and it will be best to listen to the 3 of them, of course, if you can, but write also the degree. Say sun in Taurus at 20 degrees, and even the minute if you can, and 15 minutes, but at least the degree is good enough for us. And write those down. And start, if you know your time of birth, by watching the video for your ascendant sign. Because this is the actual physical body, the ascendant sign, your destiny that you're walking on in this life path. And the ascendant sign is what rises on the eastern horizon when you are born. This is where your soul enters the physical body through that direction, if you believe esoteric knowledge. And that's what that sign set in stone, the path in your life. So the events that are most physical, most karmic, most set in stone, let's say, are usually indicated by the ascendant sign. Then the second most important sign is the moon, especially if you're a woman, and especially if you're born at night, even more so. Like I am a female. Depends not what you identify with in this case, depends what you are born genetically with, let's say. So if you are born in a female body, the moon will be very important for you because it rules the female health and the emotional world. And if you're born at night, for example, for me, my moon sign in Leo is always very correct because I'm born at night and I'm a woman. Born at night means after the sun has set or before it has risen. So if you see the sun in the chart of your wheel, that is below the line, the horizon, the straight line, you're born at night. So make sure you listen to your moon sign. And the moon sign is especially important because it describes how you perceive with your inner reality, with your soul, what is happening. Many times people would identify with the moon sign predictions even more than the ascendant sign because we're subjective beings. Since the moon is the soul, we're soulful beings. How the moon is the mind as well, interestingly enough, in astrology. So how you perceive your reality will be indicated by the moon sign. If the ascendant sign, certain things are happening in the material realm, but you might not be so attached emotionally because, say, with your moon sign, something else is happening. You might feel it much more strongly, like the theme of that year, because your emotions are centered on the moon sign, and something even small that happens, you can make a lot more of it because you're emotionally focused on that. While with the ascendant sign, it's something that is kind of preordained, and say sometimes even movies indicated in regards to the moon sign. You can experience it as the most important event of the year, something very emotionally charging, life-changing. But from the ascendant sign, if a moon is indicated, it can still happen, but you find it like it may be a big deal, but you'll be like, oh yeah, we moved. And then check your sun sign. The last thing many people, especially born during the day, or males born in the male physical body, or especially even women who are very driven, ambitious, will also associate and see a lot of what's happening through the sun sign. The sun sign gives us the most free will. The sun sign indicates what we hope for, what we really, let's say, our goals and drive. So it's the one that we can influence the most consciously. So it's interesting to hear your sun sign as well, because you have most say in the sun sign of how things will go, and you have most say of it can feel very with it can feel whatever you achieve there, whatever is happening, as very self-affirming. The sun is the spirit or the ego, the most core sense of you. So again, it will show a lot of important events that happen, especially if there are other planets in your sun sign. For example, I'm Aries sun, but I have 3 more planets, Venus, Mercury, and Mars in Aries. So it always affects me strongly from the sun sign as well. And the sun is consciousness as well. The sun is pure consciousness, not so influenced by emotions. And that's why, again, we say there is more free will there. You can use the horoscope from the sun sign as a way to where can you affect things the most, where can you put your energy in a way where you're gonna see it going in the direction you want. And it feels very satisfying after that. It's like fulfilling certain goals. All right, so yeah, if you can watch the 3 of them, great. If you can't, just at least make sure you watch your ascendant sign and whatever you feel more drawn to. If you're a night person, the sun, the moon. If you're a day person, born during the day, the sun. But I would recommend listening to the 3 as giving most importance to the ascendant sign always, because it's the most tangible events that happen. But if you are here to understand more emotionally how you're gonna feel, what will be the focus of your mind and your feelings, again, the moon sign is very pivotal. Another thing, so yes, check out those 3 signs. At the end of each video or throughout the video, I'll be giving specific degrees. So if I say, oh, Saturn will be in Pisces this year, well, not all Pisces will feel it immediately, because Saturn will be in the first 7 degrees of Pisces only. And if you see, oh, my sun is at 28 Pisces, 28 degrees, well, you're not going to really feel so intensely Saturn, but I will give specific degrees and what you're going to start feeling like it's happening. And so that's how we're going to work. We're going to see the most important influences by the planets. And to be honest, this year will be extremely interesting, 2023, because so many planets are changing signs. Saturn is changing sign. It does it only once every 2.5 years. Pluto is changing signs and does it once every 15 to 30 years. And this time it will change sign for 20-something years. And it makes such a huge shift. You'll see collectively the world will shake up. When planets change signs, moving from one sort of energy to another, there is collapse of old things, birth of new things, but it's very shaky. Even the Vedic ancient astrologer said when the sun is changing sign, which would happen every 30 days, not to start anything big, because it's like the adjustment of the layers that's happening. So I'm not saying we're not going to be starting new things, but we'll have to because the energy is changing so much. But it might take years until we're able. So Saturn is changing sign into Pisces, Pluto into Aquarius, Jupiter into Taurus, and the nodes are moving in Aries. And by the way, not too scary, but when there is such big shifts of planets, the last time Pluto changed sign was in 2008. Remember what happened then. So it's going to be a fascinating year. Mercury will go retrograde only in earth signs, and the earth signs are connected to dealing with and arranging our material and survival, anything for the physical body, for money, for work, for material matters. There will be a huge focus on that. Around the world, Mercury goes 3 times retrograde in earth signs. And Venus is going retrograde this year. It's better than Mars going retrograde, by the way. So it will be, and eclipses, of course, we're going to have normal 4 eclipses. Nothing compared to 2020. in extreme in energy, but still a lot of new redirection. And for many people on a personal level, this can be very relieving, because one set of problems that you've dragged for years can suddenly, you can be liberated from them. In a sense, your consciousness and focus will move from there. And when you don't put your consciousness or something, those problems dissolve. But a new set of challenges will appear, or a new set of tasks, and a new set of let's say, of consciousness evolving focus that will that will manifest in many of us. And before I start, as always, I would like to do a little prayer with all of you that are watching here, so the collective energy can generate the best results for all of us. If you don't mind joining me with whatever higher power you believe in, or if you are agnostic, it's the universe maybe. No one who follows astrology is fully agnostic. They believe in a conscious living universe in some way. I personally am esoteric Christian, but I welcome you to, your deity, your saint. Dear Divine Mother, dear Divine Father, dear Christ consciousness, all ascended masters, all spiritual hierarchies that are working for the upliftment of humanity, our personal guardian angels and departed loved ones that are working from the higher dimensions for the improvement and betterment of the world and our own personal life. I summon you and ask you to guide us through this adventure, the year 2023. Everyone that is present here, let them hear exactly the information they will need to make the best of what is coming, to prepare and to meet the coming new energies with the highest vibration. And whatever challenges are coming, God, please let us be able to transform them to the highest good of everyone involved around us. And whatever we can change, to accept it humbly and be thankful for our destiny, whatever it is. Bless everyone who participated here, the whole world in 2023, this new era that started from 2020. Help us do the highest good we can and fulfill your will rather than our own will. Help us align our will to the divine will so everything in our lives can flow. And give me, God, the right information, the purest information, that everyone who needs it to connect to the right peace for themselves and to have healing through those videos, through that information, and answers to many of their questions. Amen. Let's begin. Sagittarius, Sun, Moon, or Rising 2023. Sagittarius, as I said in the intro, a lot of planets are changing signs. And the most important planets, actually. So this will be a life-turning year, life-changing. A lot of old lessons and difficulties being released and no longer being a problem for us, while new such challenges and adventures will open their doors for us in 2023. But the year starts already with good news for Sagittarius, because Mars, from the middle of January, starts turning direct. Actually, since around the beginning of November or the end of October 2022, Mars went retrograde in your 7th house and opposes your sign. Like that. And that tends to be a challenging time for relationships, or more stressful time when your buttons are being pushed, where you receive, or when you're surrounded with more belligerent energy, usually coming to you from others, where you have to fix something, where you might have to fight for something or against something. So if there were such complications, from the middle of January, they start getting resolved. The pressure from your relationship starts easing off, or from contracts or agreements or any kind of stressful influences on your health, because Mars can have the energy of your health being, when it opposes your sign, of your health being under attack of some sort, usually inflammatory or viral, or sometimes it's accidents and so on. But this thing starts easing off, even though Mars continues to be in your 7th house till almost the end of March 2023. So you still are
continuing something that maybe you're doing together with another person, some discord that you're untangling towards this period, or working on something, or some relationships and so on. But it gets easier from the middle of January. And then the next big thing that is happening, actually that's one of the biggest this year, is that Saturn will move from your third house into your fourth house. Saturn has been in your third house since April 2020. And that's about 2.5 years that it consistently has been there. And it will move into your fourth house on March the 7th. But let's kind of summarize a little bit, because till March you continue to have those lessons of Saturn in the third house. And you can do some good day, you can do some important work, so you need to still know what it is. But you already, a lot of you have experienced it. And Saturn has been helpful to most Sagittarius, because it's been sending a sextile to your sign from the third house. So even if there are more responsibilities or duties, especially more demanding tasks regarding using your mental skills, using your mind, writing, speaking, communications, a bit more demanding and challenging. But these activities have been, because it's a sextile, they have been stabilizing for you. And Saturn continues to be in this third house till March, and especially the last 5 degrees Sagittarius, which are from 25 or 24 degrees till 30 degrees Sagittarius, will feel this strengthening influence from Saturn. They can receive some support from more authority figures or older people or more experienced ones. They can work on something extra hard, especially on the mental level, or with their skills, or in a work in a team environment of some sort, because the third house rules those energies. They can be doing something that is, whatever they do till March while Saturn is sextiling their sun, can have, for example, very beneficial influence on their vitality, long-lasting stabilizing influence on their career, on their reputation, on their status, on their goals, on relationships with men. If it's your moon in Sagittarius, it can have stabilizing and kind of building and constructive influence on anything to do with your family, home, property, environment, personal life and relationships. And if it's your ascendant, also relationships, to your health, to your goals. But after March the 7th, Saturn will move to the fourth house, where the energy will shift fully. But the ultimate goal of Saturn in the third house for all Sagittarius has been that for the last 2.5, 3 years, you've been working on discovering your own voice. Like a friend astrologer of mine said, when Saturn transited her third house, I asked her what happened, and she said, ultimately I discovered my own voice. It's a long process. It's been a long process, because the third house is the house of where you are speaking and where you're being heard. So some of you had to overcome fears of being heard and recognized in a group environment, because third house rules your colleagues, if you work in a team, or your classmates, your workmates, or even your friends, your mates. And Saturn made you kind of work on that, to be more authoritative in your voice, to be heard better. And usually it might have done it by first feeling that you're not heard, by first feeling that you're maybe not being respected enough, especially for younger people, that might have been the case. So they had to find their own voice, their own way of communicating and expressing. Usually Saturn does that by putting you in situations where you have to use a lot of communications, or where you have to use written or verbal ways of self-expression, media sometimes. And usually at the beginning you're fearful, you're out of your comfort zone, and then it starts becoming more and more natural. I remember when Saturn was transiting the third house from my moon, it's when I started doing videos for the first time. I was horrified. I was resisting it. I didn't want to do it. But circumstances pressed me, and little by little, every day or every week, I'll do a little bit. And that's when I found my voice. It was not from the ascendant, it was from the moon, but it still worked. So that's when I And oftentimes, if you're already someone who has found their voice, your word was even more authoritative, was more constructive. Saturn put more order for everyone into their thought processes, in their communication processes, and sometimes maybe Saturn did it in not such gentle ways. Maybe you were criticized for something. Maybe you were put in a situation where you felt you were not heard. So that's what pushed you to become more clear. Saturn likes to make things less complicated, more structured, more organized, more simple even. And another point, though, is that Saturn in the third house could have indicated like heavy responsibility that you've been going through in regards to a lot of white collar work is third house, because it consists of communicating, writing reports, using social media, answering emails. These are all third house, using the internet in any sort, using softwares, commercial transactions, marketing, advertising, business meetings. This is all third house. Even sales is part of third house, because you need to sell, you need to have the right ability to communicate. So some of you might have been working really on such skills. So maybe we're given more responsibilities in such field, which which you ultimately learn to be more effective, more concise. Saturn doesn't want you to be very verbal. Saturn likes you to be more concise, to the point. Some of you maybe had to learn some difficult things, because third house is one of the houses of learning to operate machinery, some software, some new skill, or mastering and deepening an existing skill that you have. And usually it's for work or for something practical that you're doing it, not just because it's a hobby of yours or some skill that you're enjoying. Usually there is kind of a constructive background against it. Some, the need to apply it in some way. Some of you might have been passing exams, taking some courses or classes, education and learning for exams that was quite demanding on you, on your mental, energy. So you have to learn what to prioritize, what you put in your head, what to prioritize, what information, how to systemize it, how to learn it faster, and so on. So Saturn was organizing your mind as well. And oftentimes when this transit began, maybe some of you were feeling a little bit down and depressed because the mental energy gets suppressed. A person becomes, let's say, because the third house is your internal chatter, your internal conversation. When Saturn transits the third house, some people might start, because it's a suppressing energy, talking down to themselves or seeing the more negative things around them, focusing on those negative things. But the right way that Saturn wants to work is actually not to really take you down, but to make you more realistic, more practical, more discriminatory in your thinking. The third house is where we observe the immediate environment around us, and to be more critical thinkers. That would be the best expression. So Saturn has been teaching you to be a critical thinker, and hopefully you've already have mastered that. You have a few more months till March to do that. And Saturn was maybe teaching you on practical skills, as I said. Saturn might have been teaching you on how to communicate better, but usually this might have involved some issues with those around you. So if you've been having issues with siblings, with relatives, with teammates, workmates, people at your immediate environment that you meet in your everyday life, if you felt that they were too critical, or maybe you became more critical and more discriminatory in who you let in your immediate environment, because Saturn is really like seeing realistically who in my immediate circle, friends or colleagues, is constructive and good for me, and who is a waste of time. And maybe many of you have felt like just chit-chatting and gossiping and just reading random things on the internet is losing your time, and you've prioritized the information that you put in your head, what information access you had, usually for something useful rather than just wasting your time in funny videos with kittens or babies, whatever, or just watching TV uselessly. That's why maybe many people focus on more serious information that they let inside that will be useful, constructive. Some might be on more negative information that they focus. That's another manifestation. But the others also revise, many of you, who are your immediate environment. Sometimes people, somehow their social environment is rethought over or restricted in some way when Saturn is in the third house. Had a friend, Sagittarius rising, the moment Saturn moved into her third house, she moved to another city. So it means that her immediate environment of friends, that she didn't know anyone, so it was a bit socially lonely and isolating time. So maybe some of you experienced something similar, and some of you didn't do it because of external circumstances, but because you really want it, because you realize these people are time wasters. This social group, so this people I'm following on YouTube, or those friends, like they're filling my feed with just information that I don't want to burden myself with. So you trimmed off certain interactions, you limited them. Again, Saturn is discriminatory in nature. It shows you, it removes the wheat from the chaffs, it cleans off the dead wood. So that's been a good thing to do. But if you've been having problems socially, if you felt socially isolated, this stops a bit after Saturn moves from your third house. Maybe you made social connections, but maybe there was as well more important things, work or money related, or related to some kind of something more significant to communicate with, more serious topics. But if you've been having problems with siblings, relatives, teammates, workmates, your environment, that these will stop. This will not be an issue anymore. They're coming to a resolution. Others, that might have been a very good time to develop business, because, as I said, it's a very businessy house where you connect, make meetings, discuss, brainstorm, make projects, branding, marketing, social media. You are learning maybe some skills, and you start seeing the results of that. It's been a very good time, and you still have to march maybe a bit further after that, especially if you're latest born Sagittarius, because even after that Saturn will influence you. It can be a house of self-made wealth, which is like someone who wants to start a business, self-starting business, because the third house is your skill. So this is a self-made wealth, and it's very much about marketing and and account keeping and so on, and putting the business plans and structure. I've seen many people, including me, who start like a new business or some self-made plans for self-made wealth, let's say. And during Saturn in the third house, because this time you learn a lot of skills and so on. I think it could have been very beneficial for many of you. But Saturn is moving into your, and if you've been having issues with third house things, like with vehicles, with transportation, if you've had blocked access not to have your own car, or it's breaking down all the time, or your something else might have been breaking down, or maybe the car, or if you've had some issues with internet, with phones, with communication devices, because Saturn can create blockages or difficulties there. This again will stop. This again, it will be the end of it. But all in all, I hope it was a productive time for you, because Saturn loves passing through the third house. It gives us the push to acquire new skills, to overcome fears about our own voice, self-made wealth as well, to structure our minds and our thoughts. But if you've been having issues with feeling mentally negative, even depressed sometimes, this will again shift. You'll start having a more positive mental internal talk. But Saturn is moving into your fourth house. That's a very emotional house. So Saturn is moving from March the 7th for 2.5 years till 2026 almost. So actually might be good thing for some of you, for many of you, because Neptune has been passing in your fourth house since 2012. Many years. Neptune moves so slowly. So you've been having this consistent, and Neptune is not all the time so strong in the fourth house, but only usually when it affects the degree that you have your planet, Sun, Moon, or Ascendant in Sagittarius, that you might become like emotionally confused, a bit lost, and overly emotional, unclear, maybe losses in the family, maybe a bit of an emotional mess, even though very deeply intuitive and deeply psychic as well. But it's a bit of a chaos, overly emotional, and Saturn comes here to kind of put order and structure again, this time not in your mind but in your emotional internal world. And might be a good idea to start maybe writing down your thoughts and your feelings and your impressions, because Saturn wants to materialize something, it wants to crystallize it. So it's kind of, you might either speak them out or maybe write down your feelings, because Saturn will make you delve very deep into your emotions for the next 2.5 years, almost 3, because it comes out in a little bit. So that might be also, I've noticed it might be good time sometimes someone to do some internal exploration, digging into the past. The fourth house is connected to your family, to your ancestry, to the generations before you, and to their karmic patterns. And you'll become very strongly aware of repeating karmic patterns in your family of origin and ancestry. Maybe your aunt had self-harming tendency, and your great-grandmother had self-harming tendency, or your granddad was an alcoholic and your father was, or there was a bankruptcy in almost every, or a few bankruptcy in your family, and you're repeating subconsciously, carrying on this karma. Well, Saturn here helps you really delve deep and explore such issues. It gives you 2-3 years to do that. The easiest way to do it is by working with especially psychologists that are or kind of karmic astrologers, or someone who is delving into the karma of the family, or very good psychologists that are being able to regress you or look through the patterns of the family for you to clarify them. Oh, that's amazing. One of my best friends is Sagittarius, and she's been on a deep explorative journey. And actually, in the last few months, in the last few weeks, she started on a journey to explore. And she says it will take a year more, or a year and a half, to dig through the family, through the past, with a psychic and an astrologer. And she's already seeing results. Some people can be feeling it even a bit earlier, because sometimes, not everything is like right now, on March the 7th, it begins. It's kind of energies flow into each other. So that might be, a good time to deal with those things, and some painful emotions from the past might start rising, from the family, from the past. You might feel like the family karma is building up to some extent. And sometimes it can even begin as problems with family members, as some kind of resentments coming to the surface, and with the parents, with other family members. Especially if there was anything difficult and hard in your early childhood, in your relationships, almost everyone has some issues, it can escalate. You can become more and more aware of it. So it has to be addressed. Even if the parents have passed away, there are ways to do it. And Saturn doesn't want you to do some voodoo. They are like cleansing, burning rituals or anything. Saturn wants you to look at the situation with sober eyes, with very realistic. And the high vibration of Saturn is detachment, to see it for what it was, to recognize it, and to detach from it. Not to be too emotional about it. I mean, that doesn't mean bury your emotions. There is a danger when Saturn transits the fourth house that people try and bury the emotions. That's the low vibration of Saturn. Or they try to suppress the emotions and control them. The high vibration of Saturn through the fourth house is you recognize what it is. You look at it as a scientist, and you say, okay, maybe the circumstances were like that, and you reframe it, especially during the Saturn retrograde period, which there will be 3 times over the next 3 years, where you have some deep realizations and seeing it with the eyes of a scientist exploring and recognizing it, and then becoming detached from it, becoming it's like cleaning it off after that. And the other key word for Saturn is to clean, a cleaner. So it wants to clean up the emotional messes there from the past and the karmic patterns. Saturn is also depicted as death with a scythe. It wants to chop off or discontinue and disconnect unhealthy patterns. And it's a slow process. It doesn't happen overnight. So just be aware it's not going to happen so fast. You see, you have like a 3-year period ahead for that. And you can just recognize some of those patterns and interrupt them. So, for example, if the pattern has been divorce or self-harming or poverty or whatever it is, or addiction, you can delve into that, recognize those things, and dissolve, because it's in Pisces. Pisces likes to dissolve the karma of the ancestral karma. And it starts with first realizing it and forgiving, of course. Realizing it, forgiving it, and detaching yourself, like mentally, emotionally from it. And Saturn will try and put some order into your feelings and emotional world. And especially the early born Sagittarius will feel the Saturn influence in 2023. Those that are the first 10 degrees, 0 to 10 degrees, because Saturn will be passing over those first 3 degrees, 10 degrees, or 7 degrees, but I give an orb of 3 degrees of Pisces the whole 2023, backwards and forwards. So those issues will start becoming noticeable for earlier born Pisces. But all other Pisces, as I said, some are more sensitive, they can feel it already. Now, on the more material level, what Saturn in the 4th house can indicate is that you might decide to distance yourself from family or work through issues with them. It might be a difficult process, but sometimes there is even people cutting the cord with family. Other times, I remember when Saturn transited my 4th house from the ascendant, I relocated to a foreign country. So that was a total, for the first time, I totally cut connection with my parents. And back then there was no Skype, no phones. I would call them once every 3 months for 30 seconds on a payphone to say I'm well. You know, so Saturn in the 4th house can sometimes cut totally a cord with family. Sometimes it might be the young person who leaves to live in a different place. Sometimes it might be someone else that decides that the relationship with their family is unhealthy, so they isolate themselves from them. But there is another side to Saturn. Saturn is karma and obligation. Many times I've seen that you have to pay off some karmic debt to family, to parents. You have to carry some responsibility for them, help them in something, or they might be in some difficulty. Your family, your early life family or existing family might be going through some challenging times when Saturn goes in the 4th house. Sometimes it's about relocation, so restructuring property, building something. That's the best manifestation of Saturn possible. I wish it for you rather than like some kind of difficulties overall in the family, in the emotional connection with the family. Many times it can be like you're building a house, you're moving. And of course, if you build a house with Saturn in the 4th house, it's slow process, it's meticulous, it has to be redone. Sometimes it slows down, maybe it takes longer than necessary. There are some damages or sometimes with Saturn in the 4th house to the home. You always have to fix something, whatever, Another way it can manifest is that you have some duty or responsibilities to parents. Sometimes people have to take care of a parent, ailing parent, sick parent, which is painful, but it's life. If you're at that stage, sometimes it's even a passing of a parent, especially if it's from your ascendant, maybe to a lesser degree from Sun and Moon, but it's a possibility. And sometimes it can be like my husband had it recently, and that's when he became a parent, and suddenly he had to take much bigger responsibilities towards family and it was hard for both of us because we became double parents within 11 months. So it's kind of like increased responsibilities and duties at home. That's okay if it's that, there's very good ways it can manifest. Putting your home in order, putting property or real estate matters in order, that can be another focus. For my ex-husband, Saturn transiting his fourth house was, we separated and he had to sell the property, and it took him 1-2 years. It was a bit difficult, but he did it as well. He was dealing with property, moving and so on. I mean, I'm telling you my life story, but I'm giving real examples so you see how different it can manifest. But it's centered around your personal life, about your home, about your emotions, like from becoming a parent to selling or buying properties and so on. So yeah, that's very much fourth house energy. If you're the first 10 degrees of Sagittarius, you can feel the Saturn influence as a square to your ascendant. For example, if it's your ascendant in those first 10 degrees, it might be some testing of a relationship. And of course, the family atmosphere can be affected because it affects the axis of relationships, the ascendant and the seventh house. Don't worry, I've passed through that, and it's, it doesn't necessarily mean breakup of a relationship, but there is like questioning and some obstacles you have to overcome sometimes. And sometimes, because it's also the ascendant line, there might be some challenges like to the health for a little bit. It's not constantly the whole year, but especially when Saturn hits those degrees for you, the first 7-8 degrees, where your movement is limited, or your immune system is a bit weaker, and you get a cold or something more often, because it's the ascendant, the sign, the line of yourself and your health, and you might feel a little bit that your path, you're tripping a bit on your path, figuratively speaking, that there's certain trips that you have to, blockages you have to overcome on your path. If it's your sun in those 7-8 first degrees, up to 10, let's say, there might be some challenges to the work, or maybe heavy work responsibilities, duties, some difficulties with male figures, with authority figures, with bosses that you have to overcome. Or maybe if you're working on something like more responsibilities, duties in that area that feel a bit overwhelming at times. But again, it's about building some kind of foundations there. And then if it's your moon there in those first 7-8 degrees, there might be, again, be careful with your health. With the sun, moon, and the ascendant, it can weaken the Saturn squaring it. It can weaken the immune system. It can create with the moon some female issues or stomach issues, not necessarily, or something, of the internal organs, or kind of, so you have to be with the sun, is the vitality, with the moon is health, especially for women, or it can create some obstacles with parental figures, the moon, with family, connected very much to home, place of living, all those fourth house, because the moon has the same energy, and emotionally it can feel a little bit more difficult. Sometimes you might feel like you're blocked emotionally to express your feelings when Saturn squares the moon, or more distant, but more realistic and practical in your attitude emotionally. But sometimes it might feel a bit more lonely, emotionally kind of sad, and especially the right hits. I'm currently having Saturn transit opposite my moon, and it's not all the time hard. I've been very positive many times this year, but exactly when it hits, there are 3 times it hits at certain times of the year, there is some challenge either to my health, either to my relationships with my parents, and we did some structural changes when Saturn opposed my moon, and the whole year has been pretty much about moving into this new house and fixing it and repairing it. So building, so you see, there can be positive ways if it's your moon there, or even for the whole fourth house that we're talking about. All right. But there can be challenges to relationships with the moon as well, like a cooling off, or questioning yourself how lovable you are and such things. But again, Saturn on the positive level, if you're the first 10 degrees, is very disciplinarian. You'd have more discipline, more organizational skills, you'd speak harder to yourself, but you can push yourself to do more things that are necessary. Things that should be done, that are a bit more out of your comfort zone, but this is the energy of Saturn. You can get a lot of work done as well. So especially the exact transits can be like you have extra responsibilities, duties with something, rather than, hopefully it's not like from a depressive state of mind, because it's hitting this 4th house, which is connected to emotions as well. But let's see, you write to us, the early Sagittarians, by the middle of 2023, write comments to see how you're experiencing, what things are happening. As you heard, some very good things can also happen. It's all very much to how the person manifests that energy, how they translate it. But I think it's necessary for Saturn to be in your 4th house. You've had Neptune too long in this 4th house. It might have been confusing emotionally. It might have been, maybe some of you with Neptune in the 4th house, there might have been some even connected to, when it comes to family, that you're giving too much without measure, because Neptune is unconditional love, or giving too much, or sometimes manipulation even. There might have been, while you're giving too much, or there's some kind of a manipulation coming from the family, or some kind of a dishonesty as well. And Saturn will make it very clear for you who in the family, where that is standing, and maybe you put some barriers and say, enough, I'm not gonna enable you to do this anymore. Neptune is very enabling, and it's been there from 2012. And Saturn says, no, I see the reality of it now, and I'm putting some barriers and some walls, some healthy barriers and walls. You don't have to cut off your whole family and not talk to them. And if there have been some hidden things happening in your family, the Saturn will crystallize them. You'll become very clear about anything hidden, underground, that's been going on. Some secrets will be revealed, and the karmic consequences of that will come. There might be good karmic consequences fighting certain secrets, or certain undercurrent movements, because Neptune continues to be in your 4th house till the end, till Saturn is also in the 4th house, and they both at the same time come out of your 4th house. So some important revelations, reorganizations of your internal and emotional world will be happening. Especially if there will be some bubbles and illusions and secrets, that Saturn crystallizes them and helps you work through those issues gradually for the next 3 years. And also your roots, you're kind of restructuring your roots. This is one of the houses that's really connected to your ancestry, and some of you will be carrying on important task given to you from your ancestors, to complete some tasks started by ancestors, or to end certain negative patterns started by ancestors. All right, so that's about Saturn in the 4th house. The next big move that's happening is March 23rd. So very quickly, this March is a lot of energy shifting. Pluto is going to move from your 2nd house, where it's been since 2008. What is that? 14 years, 15 years. And it's going to move into your 3rd house only for a couple of months. For April, May, and in June, it moves back to your 3rd house, to your 2nd house. But in 2024, it moves in full time into your 3rd house till 2044, for 20 years ahead. That's a huge thing. So now you can just feel for a little bit, dip your feet into it to see the energies. Some might feel it much later on, some Sagittarians. Not immediately. Pluto is a very slowly moving planet. It's a very deep, profound, and hard to understand with your conscious mind planet. Sometimes people only realize what Pluto has done for them and has transformed them when it comes out of a sign. So I'll talk a little bit about Pluto coming out of your second house, where it's been for 14 years, really transforming deeply your values, your self-worth. Maybe at a certain point during those 14 years, there was a very important development, especially if Pluto aspected something about what your self-worth and value is. And Pluto can have these extremes where you see only in black and white. Sometimes bankruptcy happens when Pluto has been in the second house. Or sometimes Pluto has, because it destroys and rebuilds, maybe bankruptcy, which is very financial house of money. Or it it destroys your self-worth and then rebuilds it anew on something much more real and stable. Or sometimes it can make or break, like make you, over those years, you can become from very poor, very rich, or from very rich, very poor, and very rich again. It's like it might have dramatically over those 14 years changed your consciousness regarding possessions, assets, maybe not at once, it's a long period, your possessions, assets, self-worth, wealth, resources. You know, maybe some of you passionately got involved, even obsessed about such things. While others, Pluto has two sides, obsessive over material possession, so on, but it also can transform it. And while others can be demonizing, like you might have been demonizing resources, money, whatever. And so Pluto during those 14 years trying to transform your attitude towards valuables, resources, money. I have a lot of friends with Sagittarius rising, and one of them during Pluto in her second house became, from the moment it entered, her wealth increased a lot. Her wealth increased to a considerable amount. She became very wealthy, rich, but she was obsessed with money. And then during this 14 years process period, her values totally transformed. Her values became way more spiritual. She stopped caring about boutique clothes and Hermes bags, and it was like a huge, gradual but incredible transformation. Others transformed their eating habits because the second house is related to that. Others transformed their, sometimes through crisis, but Pluto will not leave any stone unturned. It has to exterminate the old ways of eating habits. So but if you've been having big ups and downs and dips in finances and resources, this is coming to an end. It's no longer going to be such a focal point for you. Or if you've been obsessed about money or whatever, it's not going to be, because Pluto is going to move into your third house. I know just for a couple of months this year, but then long term for 20 years till 2044. 21 years. And from there, Pluto will be very supportive to Aquarius, because it will be making sextiles to Aquarius. Maybe first only the very early born Aquarians, and those in the first 1 to 3 degrees will feel the support of Pluto by sextile at the beginning. But all the others gradually, the later born Sagittarius will feel the sextile of Pluto from the third house, and it's an empowering aspect. It makes your mind much deeper, but it also, when the exact aspect happens for you, you'd have some deep, profound realizations mentally, penetrating mind of an investigator. Some of you, it can give you incredible ability to control your mind. But let's see overall what's going to happen. This Pluto in the third house, let's try and interpret it. Well, first of all, you see Saturn did the groundwork. He cleared here the dirt in the third house where it's been passing for the last 2-3 years. So now it's time for the digging to begin when Pluto enters the third house. Saturn exits it and Pluto enters it. So Saturn prepared the ground for the master, destroyer and rebuilder. Saturn kind of like put more order in your mind and whatever. And Pluto comes and says, now we're going to do the really important work for 20 years. Now we're going to dig deeper. Now we're going to make your communication. For some of you, it can indicate in the next 20 years, your voice, your communication can become extremely impactful, because Pluto is a generational and collective planet. For some Sagittarius, it means that their voice will have an impact on others, on large collectively. Their voice, their word will have profound meaning. Of course, the law of vibration of Pluto is corrupting. So the shadow player Sagittarius, rising or sun, moon or ascendant, can be the voice of temptation and the voice of putting corrupting influences in others. But the high vibration Sagittarius will have extremely transformational and powerful impact with their voice, with what they write, what they speak. Through social media, they can become impactful through books or through giving information of some sort. And if you're starting any career that is connected to the third house, Pluto there will be for 21 years. You can become very influential and transformative in such kind of a career. And so that might be a good, because Pluto also makes you passionate, obsessed, very focused and laser focused in such third house careers. So what could it be for some of you? I'm not saying all Sagittarius should go in such careers, but if you have any intention over the next 20 years, you can really transform that field connected to the third house socially and for others, and have a deep impact and really deep research there. So that can be third house, can be educational, where you're teaching skills of others. Third house can be business, where you are marketing, advertising. You can do master manipulation advertising plans. So transform somehow with really deep penetrating understanding the marketing field, the social media field, IT field would be the third house as well to some extent, because it's media, social, anything to do with training, with giving information, with writing. If you want to write, Pluto for 20 years in your third house, and especially because Pluto rules your 12th house of the imagination and the invisible world, you can almost like channel, messages there. Some of you might write more Plutonic things about painful topics, or even generally your mind can become a lot more focused for many years towards Plutonian things. Your internal dialogue can focus on very deep, passionate subjects, but also some darker subject, conspiracy, the evil, things like, crime, things like the occult. That's not evil necessarily, but very deep topic, or things about racism, persecution, these very painful topics, or abuse, trauma. You can do like talk, communicate, write, speak, produce information in such fields that talk about such painful topics, and you can teach people skills or whatever, something with the written, spoken, or even turn it into business. Third house is connected to that. Or just research and study a lot about such topics, Plutonian, deep. It's also might be fantastic time for Sagittarius for 20 years to develop burning interest with their mind, to read, to study a lot about the occult, about life after death, about Pluto also rules your 12th house, mysteries. Pluto is one of the planets connected to astrology for me, and psychology. So digging deep on deep topics, maybe working in a small group environment on such deep topics. But ultimately, Pluto will deepen your mind, not being superficial, very deep, almost like becoming a bit like who's got naturally Scorpio in the third house, Virgos, investigative and doubtful. Information you're not going to for 20 years be. Sagittarius has this naivety and a lot of positive thinking, very positively about things usually. This Pollyanna complex, well, Pluto will remove it. It's good to be positive and you'll always carry that energy, but in your everyday interactions with others, you'll start recognizing with your mind and spotting like a detective the seeds of positive or negative motivations in others. And you might call out people on their bullshit. Pluto is a very truthful planet. when with its highest vibration. It can't tolerate lies or superficiality in communication as well. And it's very passionate. You might even become like a passionately obsessed talking about something and preach or talk, but that's why you can have a strong impact on others, especially if you're passionate about something, or if you're in fields that are connected to, what else is third house? Transportation, information, telecommunication. That can be a field that for 20 years is 20 something years that you can have transformational influence on it. All management is third house. Schedules, management, transportations. So some of you might become passionately obsessed of reading about such things, or just writing and reading overall. And if you're a writer or whatever, you can focus, as I said, on more Plutonian topics, more esoteric, more deeper, more shocking topics. I know, writing horror or writing very deep things that touch people psychologically. And as I said, even your communication will be like that. But Pluto can also escalate issues socially for you, where it's kind of people might love you or hate you, and you the same like that, because Pluto is very black or white. And kind of like, because third house is very much about your immediate environment, the people that you let around you. Saturn already has been doing this work in your third house. And Pluto now is super passionate, so it cannot let any kind of people near you in your immediate environment. They have to be passionate, obsessed about the same thing, so deep in kind of people that you have deep conversations with, or exciting conversations. Well, I just thought of another manifestation of Pluto in the third house. Sexting, talking about sexual topics. I'm just like kidding about that. Of course, it's possible. But it can lead to power struggles in your immediate environment with siblings, sometimes relatives as well as the third house, but especially mates, teammates. And that can escalate at certain points in the next 20 years whenever Pluto makes a hard aspect from the third house. But for this you have to see your personal chart, and it triggers, say, if you have, say, the moon in Leo, and at certain point in 5 years Pluto opposes the moon in Leo, well, there can be power struggles in your immediate environment, in your communications, and so on. But again, as I said, from the third house, Pluto is overall very helpful, because it's sextiling Sagittarius. And you can really increase your passion towards certain interests that you have, towards certain skills. You can really hone, take some skills. I know, is it a knitting for you? Is it whatever your skill is? Is it intellectual? Is it craft skill? And really kind of have transformative impact on others, plus have very piercing and focus on it. Sometimes I've seen that if people, I told about the power struggles that can happen with schoolmates or mates, some jealousies between siblings can escalate to be worked through, or with schoolmates and so on. I just talking because my son is born with Pluto in the third house, and the jealousy, the sibling rivalry is just so intense, but the love is so intense. He loves and hates his sister, so both extremes. And you can also, new people who enter your realm in your immediate environment. As I said, they'll have those plutonic deep tones to them. Some of them might be darker, or discuss with you the darker sides of life. Some of them might be manipulative. That's the darker side of Pluto, or kind of abusive with words, but ultimately there will be some very bonding, intense, powerful relationships that are formed, like friendships and mateships, that are, I don't know, like sometimes can last for life, or very transformative in some sense. And then, yeah, I don't know what else to tell you about Pluto, but I think I will speak about Pluto again, and we'll make a webinar if you want to find out exactly. I'll cover all the transits, all the aspects. So around February, we're going to make a webinar on Pluto in Aquarius. If you're interested, it's going to be like very cheap, $30, but I'll everyone can calculate. I'll calculate for everyone what transits they'll have and speak about them. So you can see when to expect developments, but just remember, Pluto in your third house deepens your mind, maybe a little bit obsessive mind, makes you be more cautious how you talk. I know Sagittarius tend to have foot and mouth, this foot and mouth syndrome. They blurt out things that might shock others, that are very truthful usually. But Pluto here will kind of, because Pluto is more hidden energy, and Pluto becomes aware of others' subconscious influences, and and you might learn to be more private with your communications, or just share your information with only people you consider worthy, so to speak, rather than preach or whatever to everyone. And to be more, Pluto is very discriminatory in nature, very researching, has scorpionic nature, that let me test you before I let you know, before I tell you my truth. But your voice will carry deep passion and intensity and impact. All right. So that's for Pluto. And then very quickly after that, we're going to have Jupiter changing signs in May. But before, so May the 15th, till May the 15th, Jupiter will be in your 5th house. So that's very supportive influence. You're very much protected. All Sagittarians, because Jupiter is a big planet, it's by trine, it protects the whole Sagittarius. The first 4 or 5 months, the first 5 months of the year, you're under Jupiter's blessing. Jupiter in the 5th house, maybe some of you felt it already in 2022, others will feel it in 2023 or continue to feel it. It's a very good time for falling in love, for example, because that's the house of falling in love. So Jupiter can really open up that heart chakra, bring someone that is a good love, or take a relationships to the next level, teach you how to express love more easily. Or Jupiter is, and that's very rare, Jupiter passes your 5th house once in 12 years. Another thing that Jupiter can do when it's in the 5th house, especially from the ascendant and from the moon, I've seen it more often. Moments I've fallen very deeply in love was Jupiter in the 5th from my moon. And Jupiter also will give you more fun when it's in the 5th house. To feel more bright, shining, excited, more positive, like yourself, like you've been, so it's, even though for some early Sagittarians, Saturn will bring the seriousness and this heavy tones of responsibilities and duties that we talked around about the first 7 degrees in particular of Sagittarius. But till the end of May, Jupiter is allowing most Sagittarius to feel expansive, to let their hair down. It's making you lucky. The 5th house is the house of good karma. Jupiter unlocks good karma. Many times Jupiter, if you're in childbearing age, can be a time to get pregnant or give birth, or to have something very positive, improval in your relationships with your children, some growth stage of your children that is positive as well, to teach your children better. It's also a fantastic time to learn. 5th house is a house of knowledge as well, and intelligence. Person becomes more brighter, more intelligent, and the 5th house is your intelligent, creative, original thoughts. So when Jupiter there, you feel like on fire, like you are coming up, your mind, it's your original thought, your original creative thought, like you're channeling creativity. You can, if you're especially a naturally creative person, there is such an outpouring and flow of creativity that happens. For others, it's just more bohemian, more fun, because 5th house is to have fun, to enjoy yourself. Some people might be partying more, doing a lot of more things they love, like going to the cinema, theater, whatever shakes your boat or rocks your boat, to have more opportunities to do those things. enjoy your life, holidays, sports. Jupiter, sports are very enjoyable, and people discover new sports or rediscover sports, or the joy of movement. When Jupiter is in the 5th house, you become more in touch with your inner child for the first 5 months, to enjoy life, to be in the flow, to be more creative. Just life feels generally more positive. Life feels generally more full of spark, of wonder. You're in the flow. You discover some creative hobbies. You're luckier at moments. Sometimes people even get like gains of fortune, or games of fortune can gain something, or speculative investments can give returns. Say you buy something and its value becomes much bigger, and you make something. It's speculative. You never. It's not like. It's kind of like you receive a lot more what you've put in. And games of chance as well as that. I don't know if you play such shares, that can be interesting. Others can be good time to work with children, or to any business that is about entertainment, fashion, creativity, children, working with children, creating something using your creative talents, or performance of some sort, or even political careers can see a lot of expansion. Also, 5th house rules students. Some people might have students when Jupiter transits the 5th house, not just children. This is students is even the higher manifestation of 5th house, because all students are like our children, even if they're older than you. Some of you might start, mentoring or having students. Others might develop some creative projects that they're very passionate about, that go and flow positively. If it's your moon in Sagittarius, Jupiter in the 5th house can make you more fertile, improvement for family and home things, till May only, till the middle of May. Some easy developments with relocation, but after that Saturn kicks in. Saturn kicks in from March already, but you fully feel it, that things become a bit more difficult to relocate, and property and those such things for all Sagittarius, but especially for the moon Sagittarius after May. But it can also, if it's your moon in Sagittarius, Jupiter in the 5th house can make you feel more positive emotionally. While if it's your sun in Sagittarius, Jupiter can bring a lot of opportunities for growth, for career, to fulfill some dream or goal, improvement of relationships with male figures. So especially, the further it goes till May, the later degrees of Sagittarius get those opportunities. But for all Sagittarius, this 5th house is very protective, it's joyful, it's creative, and enjoy it, and opportunities and inspiration. It's very inspirational. You can feel more inspired than you have felt for a long time. Actually, that trumps all other influences till the middle and end of May. What I was talking about, Saturn and Pluto till now, you first kind of remember that till the middle of May, almost till the end, more like you feel the Jupiter influence in this 5th house, and then the Saturn influence starts creeping in. You start feeling it after May onwards. Sorry about that. I've been a bit sick. Of course, we're gonna have eclipses as well. Oh yeah, I forgot to say, then Jupiter moves into your 6th house. That's the important thing we were talking about, with Uranus there as well. And the 6th house, it will be there from May the 16th for a year after that, till sometime in the spring next year for the year after that, 2024. So Jupiter moving into your 6th house, that is a big, that will have positive effect on those earth houses, the green one, which is material. So Jupiter can help you expand your business, hire employees when it's there that are knowledgeable, that are good ones. Jupiter can help you get accepted to some internship, because the sixth house is the house of the apprentice, for example. Jupiter can help you anything to do with business and work, more project, improvement of your work environment of some sort, bigger office, bigger projects of some sort, even change a job with more beneficial one, hire more people. That's another thing. Plus, sixth house is health. So Jupiter in the sixth house for the next, for the 7 months, is it? For the 7 months after May, can indicate, and actually for the whole year after May, can indicate that, for example, your business expands and your finances can also improve, because Jupiter is going to make a trine to the second house. Opportunity will appear for career, work, and such matters. And knowledge, more knowledge about that. If you're in careers that are sixth house careers, they can go really well as well, especially service, military, medical, healing, health, and so on. But you can also contribute and give service to those in need, because you become more charitable when Jupiter is there. But it's also health. So Jupiter brings knowledge, and Jupiter gives things easy. And some of you might find out knowledge or information about some health issue of yours and find a resolution for it with the right supplements. And Jupiter, if it gives resolution, it's usually through might be a better doctor that you find, or through something knowledge, through research that you do, the coming to the right information at the right time. And usually Jupiter gives holistic methods of healing that are not poisonous, that are not, but whatever it gives, it tends to help you improve certain health situation and condition. Like my husband had recently Jupiter in the sixth house, and he got a lot into, because he had some issues with the digestive system. And when Jupiter enters the sixth house, if you're already predisposed to such things, they can escalate, and some kind of health issues can escalate, but it directs you to find the answer for it, because Jupiter gives answers. Find the healing for it, find the medicine for it. And he discovered supplements of any sort that help with his moods and help with his health, and it's been incredible. He's been concocting them for me as well, and he's got so much knowledge. He's like a pharmacist now, like a herbalist of some sort. It's like everywhere I open is some herbs, some mixtures. So if you're in any field that is a pharmaceutical as well, herbal, you might develop interest. Jupiter is knowledge, interest. You're really enthusiastic about things. You might develop interest towards more holistic living, towards health, nutrition. It comes easy to you. It's more, you find the solutions to it, a system that works for you. But of course, Jupiter is also the sixth house, the house of your daily responsibilities and chores. So Jupiter can expand those. Well, and wherever Jupiter goes is very important for you, because you are Jupiter, you're ruled by Jupiter. So the first 4 months, 5, your Jupiter is in a self house. So it's upgrading your self-confidence, it's upgrading your life energy, positivity, inspiration. You're on fire. But then it's joyful and it's supporting you. Then Jupiter moves into an earth sign and an earth house for you, which is practical. So your focus after May onwards, from the end of May, let's say from the middle of May, will focus on more practical matters. Will focus on and your efforts, your energy, but you get invested yourself in it, and you kind of dictate the developments there, because you are Jupiter. You have a say. You might change your job. You can move to a bigger office, improve your daily routines and environment, nutrition and health routines, or maybe it can expand your duties and responsibilities with work and such things, but you kind of are joyfully wanting that direction, so to speak. so that's about it. And also, if you want debt, if you want to get some kind of a mortgage or a debt, sixth house can allow you, give you the green light to receive that. And also, if you have employees, they can be very helpful for you. If there's someone that are under you, because you see, they're not equal to you in their skills or knowledge or social status, the seventh house would be equal. They're under a little bit. So you might be very helpful to such people in need or people that are your employees, and they can be very helpful to you as well. Okay. So that's for Jupiter. You see where the direction is. It's first a lot of self-energy, inspirational knowledge. Then it goes into practical matters where it will help you. Things develop with ease for a year after that. And then we're going to have another shift. That's the change of the nodes, guys. The nodes are going to change from Scorpio and Taurus. And whatever the nodes are, this is where... how can I say, where the eclipses are happening and more fated events. And Sagittarius, they're kind of not, they've been out of the field for you. They've been in your 12th and 6th house. And from July the 17th, they're going to change signs. And for 18 months after that, so till 2025, there will be, so from July till 2025 almost, they will be in your 5th house and in your 11th house. So you see, even though Jupiter leaves your 5th house in May, towards the end of the May, in the middle, just a month after that, Jupiter leaves it, but Rahu, which Western astrologer says Rahu, the North Node, is like Jupiter, has Jupiter-like nature, with a few differences, that Jupiter is more wisdom and knowledge, while Rahu is more desire, while Jupiter is more truth, while Rahu can have deception in it, but it has expansive and gives material results as well, and growth, just like Jupiter. Rahu will enter in this 5th house of yours, so, and it will stay there for 18 months. So this passionate adventure will continue, and with your romantic life, but it can indicate that there's more temptations in your romantic life, multiple, more than one partners, for example, or sometimes it can mean that you become fascinated, has an obsessive energy romantically with someone, or that you really, or that you become, if you're single or not, I don't know, romantically attracted to someone with a Rahuvian energy, like Rahu lovers come into your life. Or is that different, foreign, someone who's very different, someone who is a bit of has a glamour about them, someone who is different race, different same sex, something quirky, something a bit unusual, something a bit scandalous. Rahu is a bit scandalous. Or something that is a bit taboo. Rahu has scandalous, taboo notes in it, but very exciting and very passionate. It has this energy, and so it can bring you a foreign, someone from a different caste, social background, much richer than you, or something unusual there, but it's exciting. And you're willing to experiment. And if you're already in a relationship, you can experiment more, because the 5th house is one of the houses of sex. Rahu is a fertile planet. It can give you, it can get you pregnant. I had Rahu recently from the 5th house, but did I? Oh, no, yes. Oh, wow, yes, I did. Crazy. Crazy, yes, I did get pregnant but I lost it. So anyway, but if you want, Rahu can give that as well. Or you can get obsessed and very focused on children and students, whatever Jupiter already started. Rahu continues the vibration of passion, even enhances it, and the vibration of unfolding and developing it. But Rahu doesn't have a protective influence on the whole of Sagittarius. It's not this, only Jupiter has, but Rahu continues the theme of the 5th house, where you can have students where you can do your own creative projects that they're your own, but now with Pluto, with the Rahu, you can even plagiarize ideas. Rahu in the 5th house allows for plagiarizing. They don't have to be totally fully original, but you're taking different people's ideas and quirky, different cultural, ethnic or whatever, and putting them together and making something new. If you're an artist or creator, Rahu can bring new notes into your creativity. Say something tribal, something foreign, something, kind of progressive. Rahu is very progressive, futuristic as well. Something that is different, that changes your style of creativity. It changes your experimental. It's very experimental, that you experiment with your performance style. You experiment with your painting style. You experiment and introduce foreign elements that you kind of not plagiarize, that you borrow. Because Rahu is not creatively, it's not originally it's not so originally creative on its own, but it can take things that it seems and it can make something incredible. It's still originality, it's still creativity that it uses. It will really inflame and stimulate your creativity that Jupiter kickstarted on a higher vibration. But it's very fashionable, it's quirky, it's glamorous. So creatively, actually that's one of the transits for fame when Rahu hits the 5th house. Because you don't care what others think of you, because South Node is in the 11th house, the public opinion, and you come out and you show your quirky talents and you make it in a different way, because Rahu is always a bit scandalous or kind of very progressive, unusual, different, and you bring it out, whatever your creation is, and people are always drawn to others that are very unique. So this is one of the transits for uniqueness, for you can become very unique and quirky in fashion, because 5th house rules fashion, how you self-express. The 3rd house is the verbal self-expression, your voice. The 5th house is overall the personality, or your self-expression as you go to a party, do you tell jokes or do you stay aloof? Or what is your, so your self-expression will kind of and Rahu is kind of removes barriers and it's passionate. You can even make you gain access to some kind of elite environments, because the 5th house is connected to the intelligentsia, the literati, the fashionable crowd, the local or actual celebrities, the elites, So Rahu there, this is the son of the house, the 5th house, the top of the top. So Rahu there will make you maybe penetrate into such circle, or you create such kind of a trend yourself, and be in more eclectic. Is it eclectic? Is this more selective group? or also kind of some performance, even some kind of be in the center stage of some sort. That's why, as I said, especially if you're creative, especially if you have your own business where you have to use your own creativity, Rahu will continue to make you have ideas and innovations of some sort. But of course, the 5th house is also children. Sometimes it can make us focus on children more, your love life, romantic life. As I said, it can be time to experiment with a partner, sometimes even a bit of taboo things, a bit of more, kind of, this is Rahu after all, there can be temptation. But the South Node is in the 11th house. Wherever the South Node goes is the opposite, is the energy of a bit of apathy, a bit of disconnection, a bit of disinterest, and it's like you let it go there while you focus on this North Node. So you're focusing on your uniqueness and to listen to yourself. What does your heart tell you? The 5th house rules the heart. What rocks your boat and excites you? Well, you do it that way. While you, for a little bit, for a year and a half, you have to abandon what are others trying to tell you. Let me give you an example. When I had this transit and I was running my channel, that's my baby, my creation, the 5th house, and I had a certain vision for it, and I did some changes. I introduced some changes. I changed the style of it, what people were showing there. And people started saying, oh no, we're unsubscribing. So the public opinion was not overly supportive from everyone. So I lost South Node results, lost followers. But I didn't care. I said, like, I'm gonna stick with Rahu is in my 5th house. I have to follow my own creative vision, and I have to stand up for my not always listen to what others tell me. So, during that period, I was with that state of mind. I think it worked for me, and I think it developed also my own unique creative style well. So that is also my advice to you. Don't listen what others have to say all the time when the South Node is in your 11th house. What society expects to you, follow your passion. I mean, if your passion is to kill kittens, I'm not talking such passion. I'm talking divinely inspired, natural talents, passion, natural ideas that you have. Something more inspirational rather than crazy, And while you might be a bit deaf to what society expects from you. Or if you want to do some education or study, 5th house is the house of student as well, and students. Again, you follow that direction rather than listen to what does society expect from you. If you have some crazy, original, interesting ideas and everyone tells you, this has been done already. You can't. I don't think that. Well, you say, no, Rahu is in my 5th house. I'll have to follow my own inspirations for now if I want a quick fast forward jump. So let's repeat. Rahu will develop and makes you expand your passions, your hobbies, your creative interests, maybe having more fun. Sometimes Rahu can give having fun in not so clean ways because Rahu has a little bit of a, it's tempting energy. It's kind of some of the Luciferic energies there that, temptations, how to have fun and so on. But it can develop passionate romantic affairs for you, passion for children, passion for creativity, for new hobbies, to try different new things. While the South Node can make you a little bit detached from your social circle, can make you a little bit like, it is interesting to participate in big movements, what's happening in the world. Sagittarius always has opinion on everything, but with South Node in your 11th house, for a little bit, you might be like, whatever. It's like I'll focus my attention on personal things, because 5th house is one of the self houses of self-improvement, rather than try to fix the whole world, the 11th house, And of course, you can still have friendships when the South Node is in the 11th house. Some will lose some of the friendships, especially around the eclipses. When there are eclipses in the 1st, 11th house. One of the eclipses is on April the 20th. So big events with the 5th house and the 11th can happen around April the 20th. Maybe like a new romantic possibility appears, a new romantic partner, a new development with your children, some fated events connected to children, some fated events connected to creative project, a performance, center stage activities, new ideas. And the other eclipse will be, that is in the 11th house on October the 14th at 21 Libra, October the 14th. It's more like the focus is more here. Solar eclipse in the 11th house, where they can be more pivotal of letting go certain friendships, certain clients. And it's okay, some people have to leave, but you can also create new clients, new followings, if that's what you're interested in, because the 11th house is your following or clients, and the 11th house is connected also to social media, but maybe and friends as well, but maybe they can be ones that are more spiritual. That's another manifestation of the South Node. Ones that are from past lifetimes. I met some incredible people when the South Node was transiting my 11th house. It wasn't a busy social time for me because the South Node tends to weaken that. I was focused on my own creative stuff and romantic life and children. So my social life was pretty much empty there. South Node empties whatever is. But I met online some friends that I immediately recognized like soul friends. And we just had one conversation. I had a reading with this family of two, and we were like, we know each other, and we started talking to each other, and similar spiritual interests and so on. So it was like you can find still like a tribe or friends, but there is like a past life connection there, and there is something you have to complete from a past lifetime, or even someone from your previous past that you're more connected to, because South Node is connected to the past. Someone not only past lifetimes, but early life, that you're more involved with such people. But also South Node will make you disconnect and detach from certain social circles and from certain friends as well. And your focus is not so much on gains as well when South Node is in the 11th house. It's more on the creative process. This is the creative process. This is how the public accepts it and the gains you receive from that. But it doesn't, for me, there was no diminishing of gains with the South Node. The South Node is not a blocking influence. It's more like a detachment in a sense. Okay. Well, Rahu is like an obsession. So you're getting that obsession in the 5th house. So yes, that's the other big event. The nodes are changing signs, so you see a big change of karmic developments there. And these are all houses that are supportive to Sagittarius. You see, they don't make hard aspects. They're not life-shattering. I remember when I had funny eclipses of the North Node from the 5th house from my son. I got pregnant twice within those 2 year and a half. Then eclipse from my ascendant in the 5th house, I also got pregnant. So for me it was connected to children. It's crazy. But also other stuff. It doesn't mean you'll get pregnant. Don't worry. And sometimes Rahu, if you're trying to get pregnant, Rahu can mean in artificial intervention, like technology. So for some of you, that Rahu can mean that you get some extra help from technologies and new, because Rahu is the human contraptions and inventions, which can be okay, you know. Okay, so that's it. And then, of course, Venus goes retrograde from July 22nd. See, one after another. Pam, 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 pam. From July 22nd, Venus goes retrograde in a fantastic position for you guys. I mean, like Sagittarius is a lot of good supportive influences. First, Jupiter, the first 5 months, and then from June, when Venus enters Leo, to October, Venus is going to protect you. The planets that can protect someone are Venus or Jupiter, with a trine or in their sign, and they're going to be in a fire sign. So you have pretty much the whole year is filled in with protection for you. When Venus or Jupiter looks at you, no matter what other things are happening, you manage to, there is support to you, your angel, so to speak, are there. There is ease of, even in a difficult situation, you find the solution, ease, someone helps you, some inspiration, whatever. So from June to October, Venus almost for 4 months will be in your 9th house. It goes retrograde from July 22nd till September the 3rd. Yeah. It doesn't matter that it's retrograde there, it's just making a trine to your sign. And that can be a fantastic time for foreign travel. Venus is a planet of ease. It can allow you during that period to do something important that maybe by September, October, you'd have documents for foreign country, get access to a foreign country, go have some very pleasant experiences abroad. You can even travel because of work, because Venus rules your 6th house. Or you can study something. Venus is high education because of work, to expand your knowledge of some sort. So 9th house is high education, or you might be teaching something, something connected to a specific method, something connected to some practical skills, because it's the rule of the 6th house. Or you might be teaching workers or whatever, or future workers. So, but there is, on Venus also rules what for you? The 11th house. They can be trip connected with friends, or maybe even seeing friends from the past, because the South Node is also, you know, Venus rules where the South Node will be revisiting during the retrograde period places in the faraway places that you haven't been before, or that you haven't been for a while. foreign trips, but they go well. I mean, it's a trine and the ninth house of foreign travel. You might really enjoy in this period to learn, to study. If you're having exams or some academic things happening, they'll go well with Venus protecting you there in the ninth house. Teachers and mentors will be beneficial to you. They'll help you in some way. So I think that will be quite good. And again, to make you feel better, all Venusian things will be better in your life, which would be like pleasures, but especially what will give you pleasure is a high-minded, connected to like-minded person, because Venus rules the 11th house, with similar ideology. Might be a good time to go to some conference where some spiritual or where some higher knowledge or something humanitarian or for the future of humanity is being discussed. You can really love learning something new, pre-qualifying. While Venus is retrograde, you might rethink certain direction or revisit some old studies or old knowledge or old wisdom, or if you're working, or you might be working extra hard on with love on some teaching or learning project, or something connected, especially if you have import, export, that can be good time for your business as well. Venus is helping anything with foreign countries, with movements, and the higher mind as well, feeling more positive. It affects your mind. Of course, there can be some rethinking of relationships or direction in your life where you're headed. Yes, there can be some rethinking of a relationship around that time, but I don't think Sagittarius in particular is the ones that are affected in a negative way during that Venus retrograde, but it depends. Like this Venus retrograde might be, if you have an ascendant in Aquarius, might be happening in your 7th house, so that might be more like testing for relationships. So you have to see the overall, I would usually advise check it from the ascendant most importantly, and then if you hear your sun and moon only when you hear the specific degrees mentioned with more focus there. All right. And of course we have to cover the Mercury retrograde periods. And the first, and all of them, I found it very fascinating that Mercury is going retrograde only in your earth houses, in your material houses. So both Mercury and Jupiter will be helping you put order in your affairs, in your daily affairs, in finances, money, work, career. Mercury periods of retrograde and the shadow and retrograde and shadow are especially beneficial period to manage, to arrange, to get a lot of work done, to have more, more efficient, in your case in 2023, material circumstances and environment. It's more on the physical level it's working, this Mercury. It's not making you roam over your personal relationships or emotions, or no, it's like dealing with practical matters. And the year starts with Mercury retrograde already till the 19th of December. Or 18th, of January, till the 18th of January. So the whole December 2022 and the whole of January, Mercury is in your 2nd house. You're arranging some financial matters of worth, of valuables, of resources, of possessions. Maybe change your wardrobe, throw out old things, recustomize some old, move money from bank, whatever. Just during the retrograde period, don't take some big risks with your money to invest them in something totally new. But also some money can come to you from before, something valuable. You can find it if you've lost it. Make sure you protect your possessions during the retrograde period, because sometimes it can be misplaced. But usually it can be very good for practical material. You can invest or study or research, or make some structural changes and arrangements that will lead you after the Mercury retrograde to more resources, more money and finances. Or you can even rethink your eating habits. Pluto's been doing it for long, but Mercury can hammer this in. All right, then Mercury goes retrograde in your sixth house, another very practical material house of employment that is happening from April 21st to May the 14th. And it's very close to Jupiter, so that's a good Mercury retrograde. And it's making you rethink maybe some changes at work are happening, maybe old work project you pick up. So the whole April and the whole May, there is this focus there of your skills, your mind. In the house of work, maybe you're finishing some project, editing it, or some old project comes back, or some job that's not finished, or extra work and something, extra mental efforts in some work, or maybe you focus on your health. That's another of the health houses where you're rethinking, and Jupiter will continue the process after that, but where you're rethinking your health so you can fix a health problem, starting to study and research about it, to investigate, to plan for it, and so on. Or maybe even rethinking your debt and how to manage this debt better, remortgaging or whatever, something like that sort. Of course, sometimes there can be some conflicts with colleagues in the work environment, or really rethinking, is this the right work position? If it's the right work, you just maybe something changes in your schedule. There's some unexpected developments. You've planned this and this, but you have to go now and maybe train for new software at the office, or some shifts at the work environment and the work process that you have to adapt to, and so on. Then Mercury goes retrograde. I would say the whole August and September is in your 10th house. I think you'll feel this the most because it's directly aspecting Sagittarius. This is the most powerful one. So that can be a very busy time, August and September, doing something in your career, something maybe that your voice can be heard, visibility, working on some project that is connected to marketing, advertising, media, speaking, reports, papers, anything mercurial with communication, with information, where you can even be visible. Sometimes there can be some deadlines you're working over, or very focused mental work, or some important conversations with authority figures, with institutions, maybe some re-examining of the management of business or your work, or rethinking, do I want to be in this career or no? Maybe some career project from the past comes back to be reviewed, to be fixed, to be improved. And again, in your career environment, you have to be prepared that there will be some curveballs and unexpected developments, maybe alternatives that you have to consider how to deal with those things. But at the end of this process, when Mercury turns direct on September the 18th, it's retrograde from August 23rd till September the 15th, August 23rd till September 15th. When it turns direct after that, you'll see that you have maybe more efficient work, better fulfilled project, maybe a new job sometimes, maybe revised circumstances in your work. Again, you're putting in order your social status, your worldly responsibilities and duties. You're doing practical stuff, and Mercury is great at getting a lot of practical things done and sorted out. And the last time Mercury is retrograde, it's in your second house, Sagittarius, the same as the beginning of the year. But this time it's happening so the year starts with Mercury retrograde in your second house and ends with Mercury retrograde in your second house from the 13th of December till January the 1st, 2023. But this time it's not only finances here and practical things. This time Mercury comes back into Sagittarius as well, and the last 10 degrees of Sagittarius will feel it. So if you're Sagittarius born from 20 till 30 degrees Sagittarius, this Mercury retrograde at the end of the year is very important for you. You'll be doing some very important conversations. So the whole December, January 2023 and 2024, very mercurial time for you. You're arranging business, negotiations, communications. Be careful around that time for passwords, security on your online, credit cards and so on. Sometimes Mercury can do such problems, especially because it's going to be squaring Neptune around that time. So some miscommunications, be more careful around, some gossiping or misinformation, misunderstanding of something, things that have to be clarified. As well, rethinking certain path in your life, rethinking if it's your sun in those last 10 degrees, something to do with your work, with your business, with your overall direction, or maybe also with the moon, it might to do with family, with emotional relationships, that there's some important discussions to be dealt with. But Mercury retrograde overall can indicate that every time I had Mercury retrograde over the ascendant, it meant that because I'm in very mercurial job, I was extra busy editing something, writing, speaking something, like concentrated efforts, because retrograde planet is 3 times closer to the Earth, so its intensity is 3 times more powerful. That's why you have to be very careful with everything mercurial, because the planet is so powerful. If you make a mistake in your communication or whatever, the results are 3 times more impactful, you know. But also if you do something great with Mercury, writing, speaking, communication, business, transactions, media, then the results are 3 times more impactful in a positive way as well, and important. There you go, guys. Now let's see quickly specific degrees from the outer planets. Uranus is not affecting Sagittarius directly. It's making no aspect from the 6th house. I mean, it's having a long period of 7 years, started 2017 till 2026 in your 6th house. It wants to revolutionize, and Jupiter will help your work and maybe make you independent with your work for some of you, freelance or whatever. But it continues to be till 2026, and may also maybe with health can sometimes do shakes-ups, but it doesn't make any direct aspect to Sagittarius, so it's not affecting you. Plus, Jupiter will make sure things are going well when it's with Uranus in the 6th. Then Pluto, we talked at the beginning that Pluto, for the first 2-3 degrees in Sagittarius only, they would feel this very empowering influence, the sextile of Pluto to Sun, Moon, or Ascendant, especially if you're in a Plutonic careers, if you're the first 0, 1, 2 degrees of Sagittarius, the next 2 years can be very empowering when you do some feat, when you get support from the universe and people around you to achieve something powerful that you're passionate about. If it's your sun, it can be something to do with your goals, or even an important, passionate male appearing in your life. It can stabilize or improve, make really good your career with your moon, your family life, emotional life, personal life, emotional relationships, place of living. Funny enough, the first 1-2 degrees of Sagittarius, they're having Pluto sextile and Saturn square. So for them, 2 heavy planets affecting the first 1-2 degrees in 2023. So they can be, whether it's your sun, moon, or ascendant, some big important changes with the sun is, as I said, more connected to career, to professional realization, to goals, to vitality. With the moon, personal life, home, family, emotional relationships, moods. With the ascendant, the overall life direction. Well, Saturn, so you'd have a vibration both of Saturn and of Pluto. Well, Pluto will be helping you, so Saturn will be more difficult, but you'll still have a support of Pluto. And you'll find some very deep, insightful solutions. You'll have a lot more perseverance. Pluto is this kind of animalistic energy, almost the adrenals, you know, and focus of like an animal waiting to catch its prey, such laser focus. So it can help you achieve some big stuff, the very early degrees of Sagittarius. And then Neptune now. Neptune is going to affect those of you who are born from 24 to 27 to 28 degrees in Sagittarius. 24 to 27, 28 degrees in Sagittarius, they're going to have Neptune square the Sun, Moon, or Ascendant. You see, the early Sagittarius, the first 10 degrees, are having very Saturnian influence. They're like serious, they're becoming more responsible, they're taking responsibility, they're taking on some duties, they are demanding from themselves more structure, more organization, or life is a bit tight on them and so on. While the later born Sagittarius, those born from 24 to 27, 28 degrees, they're under totally different influence. They're like under Neptune. And they can feel like they're a little bit lost, demotivated, a bit like underwhelmed in a sea, not knowing where they're going. Imagine a little boat and the sea with no sails, and they have to learn for a year or two to, maybe some of you that I mentioned those degrees are feeling it already, to navigate without oars and without sails, and to trust the universe. So Neptune transits are about turning to a higher power and trusting that there is a higher power. And if you're someone who likes to do and see material results all the time, if you're someone who likes to have things organized and clear, well, that's going to be tough time for you. You can feel like tossed in this ocean of emotions or confusion. But if you're someone with more spiritual inclination, someone who likes to take time to feed the soul, well, that's what Neptune is for, and to connect with the internal needs. So for all of you Sagittarius in those degrees, might be time even to take more time away and off. Might be time to rest more, to listen to more music, to be close to ocean, to be close to nature. The powers of Neptune are very nature connected. Some of you might have awakening of spiritual abilities, of past life memories, because Neptune is the holder of such things. Neptune is, just be careful for addictions, and because Neptune can escalate the desire to escape reality. And good ways to escape reality is by being in nature, by watching movies. Neptune rules the film industry, movies, music industry, arts, crafts, and also especially if you yourself do some of those, getting lost in the timelessness of art or music. Otherwise you can get lost in drinking and whatever, smoking and marijuana or whatever. But Neptune as well is it's very refining. Even if it's a hard aspect, it can refine you to be more spiritual, to be more compassionate, to be wanting to help so many people. And it removes the predatory influence from a person. They become more innocent and loving, wanting to help and compassionate. Neptune carries with its highest vibration the impulse of Christ, the Christ energy. Turn the other cheek, but it can make you more allowing, too forgiving sometimes. Or like you might want to help others, especially your family. Neptune is making square from the 4th house, and sometimes they can take advantage of you or others, so they can not tell you the truth. They can be some deception. Just be careful about some deception. Saturn will sort it out soon after, within a year or two, when it comes on those degrees, to put order there. It already probably will be affecting you more and more. But there is a possibility those degrees, like if you want, for example, to do something big with your business, whatever, especially with Jupiter in your 6th house, but Neptune is squaring your Sun, you might not be seeing clearly some things. There might be some losses involved on the material level with Neptune affecting the Sun or the Moon. Sometimes Neptune squaring the Ascendant, if it's your Ascendant there, can have a dissolution of a relationship, so some disappointment in a relationship, or some kind of something hidden that comes to the surface, or some ambivalence and clarity about a relationship. It can also be a very romantic relationship, but there is something there unattainable, or a little bit out of reality, unrealistic, or with some need for some sacrifice. Or it might just need that some of you have to sacrifice something for loved ones, for family, for Sometimes we have to give unconditionally love without expecting something in return. And Neptune times are about that. That's unconditional charity and love. But if you're not being aware of that, if you're not consciously choosing it, something might turn out that there's some deception there. Some things from the past, from the family secrets can appear. Or I also have seen relocations. I had a Sagittarius guy with the Sagittarius sun, and when Neptune squared his sun, he dissolved his business and moved his whole family to a different country overseas. So sometimes Neptune, can do those things. Neptune is far away places. But I would advise you, give yourself more breaks when you have Neptune transits. If you're this number, take care more of the soul, read spiritual literature, ground yourself. Neptune is very ungrounded. Like being nature, barefoot, and so on. Give your time alone because you're very psychically sensitive during Neptune periods. Even if someone like me, when I had Neptune aspect my moon with an opposition, I was the most sensitive, emotional, such waves of feelings. Like I was so in love, one moment up, one moment down. In a relationship that could never happen because it was, kind of I was in love from far and so on. So Neptune can give those things, but sometimes it can give actual genuine, I felt like genuine love, and I felt it was very spiritual love. So, and it doesn't have to be towards the opposite sex. It can be towards some cause or towards someone else, family or whatever, that you're called to sacrifice a bit for and show your Christ energy there. So there you go. But as I said, for more mundane things, if you're the crowd of Sagittarius that are, from 24, 25 to 27, 28 degrees, it's a little bit harder to have a better perspective. Maybe Jupiter will help from the 6th house, which is a practical house. But it's kind of like, it might be you might be imagining something, but it doesn't turn out to be like that. Or you might be trying to organize yourself to be more practical. Maybe Mercury and Jupiter will help, but it might be harder for you the most than the other Sagittarius. So that's all, Sagittarius. Wow, so much. Which one do you remember first? You have to keep coming back and watching it. But yeah, Saturn moves into your 4th house. Remember that. Jupiter is in the 5th and then in the 6th. Remember that. And of course, if you're here, your degrees, pay attention to whenever I mention your specific degrees. That's very important and valid for you. So thank you so much and have a blessed 2023.